Have you ever wondered why Draco Malfoy hated Harry Potter so much? What if his hatred wasn't just petty jealousy, but something much deeper? In today's video, you'll discover the real reasons behind their legendary rivalry. Throughout the entire series, Harry Potter is portrayed as the ultimate hero. That makes sense. After all, the early books were meant for children, and a complex, morally ambiguous protagonist wouldn't have fit the tone. Draco, on the other hand, became the perfect antagonist. Arrogant, cruel, and cowardly, he seemed to exist purely to make Harry's life miserable. Tom Felton's brilliant performance only solidified this image. But was Draco really just a spoiled bully? Or was there more to his animosity toward Harry? The truth is, Draco had every reason to resent him. A childhood shaped by bloodlines. To understand Draco's hatred, we need to look at where he came from. He was the only son of Lucius Malfoy, a wealthy, pure-blood wizard who once served Lord Voldemort. His mother, Narcissa Black, came from an equally prestigious magical family. From childhood, Draco was taught that he was special, superior to Muggle-borns and those with lesser heritage. With no siblings to challenge him and parents who reinforced his pride, Draco grew up believing he was destined for greatness. By the time he arrived at Hogwarts, he was already entitled, arrogant, and used to getting his way. But was that enough to make him despise Harry Potter? Probably not. After all, Draco had his own circle of friends. His true resentment came from something far more personal: the first betrayal. Before he even set foot in Hogwarts, Draco had already heard of the boy who lived. His parents speculated that Harry would grow up to be an even greater dark wizard than Voldemort himself. They were eager to see what kind of ally or rival he might become. Draco's first encounter with Harry was in Diagon Alley. Not knowing who he was speaking to, he treated him politely, even trying to befriend him later on the Hogwarts Express. He reached out first, offering his hand and an alliance. Harry's response? Public rejection. It wasn't just a refusal, it was a humiliation. Harry chose Ron Weasley over him, laughed at Draco's words, and made it clear that he wanted nothing to do with the Malfoys. For Draco, who had been raised to believe in status and legacy, this was a crushing blow. It was the beginning of their rivalry and a wound that never quite healed. A lifetime of unfairness. As if the rejection wasn't enough, Hogwarts quickly became a nightmare for Draco in one particular way. No matter what he did, Harry always stole the spotlight. Draco was smarter, more disciplined, and more skilled in many areas. Yet despite his efforts, Harry always received praise, attention, and admiration. Not because he worked harder, but because he was famous. Professors, except for Snape, favored Harry. Students idolized him. Even when Draco outperformed him in academics or Quidditch, it never seemed to matter. For a boy raised to believe in prestige and superiority, this was unbearable. The frustration built up, feeding into his resentment, a life defined by expectation. Unlike Harry, who had the freedom to choose his own path, Draco was bound by family expectations. He didn't just dislike Harry, he feared him, because if Harry won, that meant the Malfoy legacy was crumbling. His father expected him to uphold their bloodline's reputation. His mother pressured him to be the perfect son. His entire world revolved around pleasing his family and living up to their ideals. So when Voldemort returned, Draco wasn't just fighting for his own beliefs, he was fighting to survive. Unlike Harry, he never had the choice to be a hero. The redemption that almost was. For all his cruelty, Draco wasn't heartless. Despite years of rivalry, he hesitated when given the chance to expose Harry to Bellatrix Lestrange. He wasn't as ruthless as his father had wanted him to be, and in the end, he rejected Voldemort's cause entirely. I'm not saying Draco was secretly a good person or that Harry was the villain, but if you take a step back, it's clear Draco had plenty of reasons to hate Harry. and in his position, many others would have felt the same. Draco Malfoy's hatred for Harry Potter wasn't just about childhood rivalries or schoolboy jealousy. It ran deeper than that. It was a battle of upbringing, expectations, and identity. From the moment Draco set foot in Hogwarts, he wasn't just another student. He was a Malfoy. That name carried power, wealth, and responsibility. And then came Harry Potter, the boy who had no name, no prestige, and yet somehow stole everything Draco believed was his by birthright. Imagine growing up in a world where blood status is everything. Imagine hearing your whole life that you belong to the most powerful and noble wizarding family. Imagine being taught that Muggle-borns are inferior, that Gryffindors are reckless, that greatness is reserved for purebloods like yourself. Now imagine entering Hogwarts and seeing all of those beliefs shattered before your eyes. Draco's first year should have been his moment. He was set to dominate Slytherin, form powerful alliances, and establish himself as the most promising student in his year. But nothing went according to plan. Instead of admiration, he was overshadowed. Instead of making a powerful friend in Harry Potter, he was rejected and humiliated. And worst of all, he realized that Hogwarts wasn't a place where his name guaranteed him respect. It was a place where he had to compete. And no matter what he did, he was always second to Potter. The frustration built up quickly. Harry broke rules and got away with it. Harry defeated a fully grown mountain troll in his first year and became an instant legend. Harry got into the Quidditch team without even trying. The teachers, except for Snape, treated him like he was special. And Draco, who had worked hard to earn his place, watched in disbelief as this ordinary boy who had grown up with Muggles stole the attention and admiration that should have been his. The worst part was that Harry didn't even seem to want it. He didn't gloat, didn't boast, didn't even seem to appreciate the fame he had. That made Draco hate him even more, because what kind of person is handed everything on a silver platter and doesn't even care? Each year, the resentment grew stronger. When the Chamber of Secrets was opened, Draco saw it as a perfect opportunity to prove himself. He threw insults at Hermione, mocked Harry, and reveled in the idea that maybe, just maybe, the old pureblood order would be restored. But even then, he was sidelined. He wasn't the heir of Slytherin. He wasn't the one making history. Once again, it was Harry in the spotlight. By third year, Draco's tactics changed. If he couldn't outshine Harry, he could at least bring him down. He taunted him about his parents, took pleasure in his fears, and when Buckbeak injured him, he milked it for all it was worth. He wanted Harry to suffer, to feel small, to understand what it was like to be pushed aside. But nothing worked. Harry was still the hero. Draco was still just the nuisance in the background. Fourth year was a breaking point. The Triwizard Tournament should have been his chance, a competition that tested skill, intelligence, and courage, things Draco believed he had in abundance. But of course, Harry was chosen. Not Draco, not any Slytherin, just Harry again. And even though he knew deep down that Harry hadn't put his name in the goblet, he still couldn't stand it. He made buttons mocking him, ridiculed him in front of the school, anything to remind himself and everyone else that Potter wasn't as special as they all thought. Then Cedric Diggory died, and for the first time Draco felt something else. Fear, because Voldemort was back. And his father, his powerful, proud father, was back at the Dark Lord's side. It stopped being about school rivalries. It stopped being about Quidditch and house cups and petty insults. It became real. Fifth year was suffocating. His father was in Azkaban. The Malfoy name was tainted. And Draco, once so confident in his family's power, felt his world crumble. His mother was terrified. His father was disgraced. And Voldemort, the Dark Lord he had been raised to believe in, was no longer a distant legend. He was real, and he was expecting loyalty. Draco did what he had to do. He aligned himself with Umbridge. He became a part of the inquisitorial squad. He tried to regain control, to feel important again. But it was all meaningless. He could punish first years, take house points, enforce ridiculous rules. But it didn't change the fact that he was powerless. And Potter, as always, was at the center of it all, leading Dumbledore's army, rebelling, fighting back, winning. By 6th year, the game was over. Draco wasn't just a spoiled rich kid anymore. He wasn't a schoolyard bully. He was a soldier. Voldemort had given him a task meant for his father. Kill Dumbledore. It was his only way to restore his family's honor, his only way to survive. But he couldn't do it. Draco spent that year breaking apart. The boy who once mocked Harry's every move now stood in the bathroom, sobbing over a mission he couldn't complete. The boy who once took pride in his name now saw it as a curse, and the boy who once hated Harry Potter for his fame and fortune now realized that he would give anything to trade places with him. Because at the end of the day, Harry had something Draco never did: freedom. Harry could choose his path. He had friends who stood by him, not because of his name, but because of who he was. He didn't have to prove himself to a father who only valued power. He didn't have to live in fear of a Dark Lord who demanded absolute loyalty. He had a choice. Draco never did. The final battle came. Hogwarts was burning. His family begged him to leave. And in the end, Draco ran. Not because he was a coward, but because, for the first time in his life, he made a choice for himself. He saw Harry in the forest, alive when he should have been dead. He saw him defeat Voldemort, end the war, break the cycle. And for the first time in his life, he felt something other than resentment. Relief. Draco never apologized to Harry, never tried to be his friend. There were too many years of bitterness, too much damage done. But he nodded at him at King's Cross years later, and in that silent moment there was an understanding. He had spent his childhood hating Harry Potter. But in the end, Harry had never been the enemy. It was the expectations, the lies, the fear. Draco Malfoy was never truly free. But in that quiet moment, as he watched his own son